Hi, this is Badfic Readings again. This story is called Legolas by Laura. It's quite a famous badfic actually, and I found it quite a few years ago. There are other readings of it out there on the internet, but I thought I might have a bash at it anyway. And I hope you enjoy. Legolas was riding along the woods, and one day he found a little baby waiting cold. So he got off his horse and went to the baby, and then Legolas said, "Who left you here, little one?" And then the baby just cried, and Legolas picked her up and hold her, and then the baby stopped crying, and then Legolas said, "Your name is going to be Laura." And then Legolas and the baby went onto the horse and went back to the castle where he lived. Legolas said, "Father, mother, I found this little baby in the woods." And then Legolas' mother got up and walked down and said, "How can people put baby in the woods and to die?" Then Legolas' father said, "We are going to keep her." And then Legolas was happy for some rising. 10 years later, Legolas got up and went into Laura's room and said good morning, and then Laura said good morning too. Then Legolas said, "What's the matter?" And then Laura said, "Legolas, I want to know how to ride a horse." And then Legolas said, "Okay." And then Legolas says, "First you get dresses and have something to eat, and then we'll go for a horse ride lesson." Meanwhile, Strider and Gandalf was riding towards where Legolas lived, and then Strider said, "Gandalf, I did not know Legolas had a sister." And then Gandalf said, "I did not know as well." Meanwhile, at Mondor, the Dark Lord was planning to kidnap the princess, but not Legolas. Then the boss of the orcs came and said, "I'll get her for you, sir." And then the Dark Lord says, "Yes, you can." Meanwhile, Legolas and Laura was horse riding, and then Laura said, "Legolas, who's that?" And Legolas looked over and it was Gandalf and Strider. Legolas says, "That is Gandalf and Strider." And then Strider said, "Legolas," and then Legolas said, "Strider, long time seen." And then Strider said, "How's you?" And then Legolas said, I am fine." And then Gandalf says, "Who's this then?" And then Legolas says, "Meet Laura. I found her in the woods when she was just a baby." Laura was shy at first, and then Legolas said, "Laura, come and meet Strider and Gandalf." And Laura says, "Hello, I am Laura." Legolas says, "She is the princess." And then Strider said, "She is so cute." And then Legolas said, "That will be my fault." And then Gandalf says, "Why?" And then Laura said, "He protects me, that's why." And then Legolas looked up and said, "I think we should go back to the castle." And then Laura said, "I can feel it too." Legolas said, "Do you want to stay for a night?" And then Gandalf and Strider said, "Yes, please." And then they had tea and went to bed. During the night, Legolas asked the guards to keep an eye on Laura's room. Meanwhile, the orcs climbed up the window and grabbed Laura, and then Laura woke up and screamed, and then the guard went into her room and saw lots of orcs, and then Legolas ran down the hall. Then Legolas said, "Where is Laura?" And then the guard said, "The orcs took her." Meanwhile, the orcs was back at Mondor, and then Laura said, "Put me down," and then the orcs did, and then the Dark Lord came out of the fire and said, "Welcome, Laura." And then Laura looked at him and said, "No, it can't be." And then she tried to run away, but the orcs got it. Then the Dark Lord said, "Put her in a cell and bet her and do whatever you want with her, but do not kill her." Then the orcs took her to the cellar and threw her in the cell, and they shut the door. Laura got up and went to the window and looked out, and she was wishing that Legolas or someone will save her. Meanwhile, back at the castle of Milkwood, Legolas was getting the army ready to go and save Laura. Meanwhile, Laura was sitting on the floor, and then the door opened, and it was some orcs, and the orc tied Laura with some chains, and then one of the orcs stripped her, and then he wrapped her, and then Laura says, "Go away, you bastard!" And then another orc come with a whip and whipped her hard, and then the orcs all bet her almost to death, and then the Dark Lord came in with a tube of poison and then injected it into Laura. A few hours later, Legolas and the others was on the way to Mondor to save Princess Laura. Meanwhile, in the cell where Laura was being kept, Laura woke up and she looked on her body, and there was blood and scars. She could only move her right arm but not her left. Laura says, "I feel so cold," and then she can't see very well. At the front gates of Mondor was Legolas and the others, and then they said, "Let Laura go." And the Dark Lord said, "No." And then Legolas said, "Right, listen, I'll climb up to the cell and get Laura, and you and the others will find another way in." Then Strider said, "All right," and then Legolas started to climb up. Meanwhile, while Strider and the others ran into Mondor and went into the castle, Gandalf says, I'll go and kill the Dark Lord, and you and the others go help Legolas." Strider said, "Be careful," and then Gandalf says, "I will, don't you worry about me." Meanwhile, Legolas got to the cell where Laura is. Legolas said, Laura, are you in here? And Laura says, oh, Legolas, you finally came. And then Legolas says, are you alright? And Laura said, no, I am not alright. And then Legolas said, they bait you up and raped you also. The Dark Lord gave you the poison. And then Laura says, how did you know that? Then Legolas says, when I was your age, they did the same thing to me. Then Laura says, can you get me out of here? And Legolas said, okay, stand back. And he ran back and ran towards the door and knocked it down. Laura said, wow, and then Legolas looked and saw she was covered in blood and scars. Also, she was naked. And then Legolas says, why did it to you, not me? And then the orcs came and said, because she's got a power and she can destroy all those bad guys. And then the fight began. Legolas got out his bow and arrows and started firing at them. Legolas saw some swords and said, Strider, is that you? And then Strider says, yes, it is. And then Legolas and the others started to kill the orcs. Meanwhile, Gandalf is have a fun time trying to destroy the Dark Lord. Gandalf says, I wish Frodo and Merry and Pippin and Sam were here. And then a sword came out of nowhere and said, some wished is here. And then Gandalf turned and said, Frodo Baggins, what are you doing here? And Frodo says, we came to help you and we got rid of the ring. And the Dark Lord says, oh no! And then the magical powers from Gandalf destroyed the Dark Lord. Meanwhile, Legolas and Strider and the others were helping Laura down. And Strider took off his cape and put it around Laura. A few hours later, Legolas and the others are on the way back to the castle. Legolas says, we must go to Rivendell and get Laura better. Then Gandalf says, I think you were right. And they turned around and went to Rivendell. Legolas looked down on Laura and put his hand onto Laura's head and she was browning up. Strider went to the side of Legolas' horse and looked and said, she is getting worse. And then Legolas said, I know. A few hours later, they were at Rivendell and Legolas stayed at Laura's side every day until she wakes up, and then Legolas kissed Laura on the lips, and then she moved her arms around Legolas, and Legolas says, are you alright? And then Laura said, yes, I am. Legolas said, I am so happy. And then Laura said, do you want to be my boyfriend? And Legolas said, yes, I'll be your boyfriend. And then Laura and Legolas kissed again. Laura says, what happened to me, Legolas? And Legolas says, you got kidnapped by the orcs and they raped you and bet you almost to death. And then the Dark Lord gave you some poison. And then Laura says, why can only move on arm? And then Legolas said, your left arm is broken. Then the door opened and it was Strider, and then Laura said, hello, Strider, and then Strider says, I see you're all awake. And then Laura